Alright, this is CATH, Cathedral, Scarlet Monastery. What we're doing is a Spellcleave group. I'm level 39, we have 2 level 40 mages. As you can see, this is the first pull. We also have a 40 priest as our healer and a 38 mage as well to finish the whole group off. Basically, your initial pull, you run through the hallway with your shield up and a priest shield bubble on you, and you gather up all of the NPCs while your group stays back, and then you run to the doorway. Once you get outside the doorway, it's a good key factor to maybe aggro any patrols that are around the closest mob with probably one of your spells, any spell that does damage or even silence will do. Then your next key factor is to run back through the doorway with a blink to initiate the doorway entrance. As soon as you go through, blink through so you create a little gap between you and the NPCs, but also give yourself enough time for the NPCs to run outside of the location. You'll then have your team either the priest rebub you. You want to, of course, do blizzarding as you run through the doorway so they can catch all the NPCs in slow-mo. You can either Frost Nova yourself or have one of your teammates follow up with the Frost Nova since you'll have all the aggro. Of course, one of your team members will start to create threat and grab all of the aggro as you run through the door with all the NPCs. It's only going to be about 7 to 8 mobs. There's not going to be a lot to worry about. This you'll just AOE down max blizzard range with all of your mages. Then as soon as you can, after you Nova and get away and create some gap, you will Nova. Not Nova, but you'll Blizzard yourself, and then once your Nova goes off of cooldown, you'll be able to use that Nova again just in case you need it if they get too close to create some more kiting. As you can see here, I am running through and I'm doing the right side pull. This right side pull here isn't that difficult. You just bubble up, have the priest bubble you, same with left side. You gather up all of the NPCs, and if you need to, reapply your mana shield or your frost shield, whatever shield you're using. Make sure and then make sure you're buffed, and then you can also ice block so that you don't die. Once you ice block, all of the mobs gather around. First before another mage starts to use uses blizzard in the background to pull all the aggro off ice block. Now if they don't do this, as soon as your ice block fades, you'll get auto attacked by all the NPCs at the same time here. This is a key factor here. Make sure you have a good mage in the background to pull that aggro off, and make sure you synchronize your timing with the other mage that's on the left side. I'm going to use 2 mages here. You don't ever want to do 1 mage at a time. You want to have 1 mage go right, 1 mage at the left, and grab all the NPCs, probably in synchronization for timing, and then you both synchronize your ice blocks right in the middle of that fountain. Now, in some cases, the NPCs will not be slowed enough to take advantage. If that happens, run through the doorway, have your entire team go back through that doorway, and kite them as they enter. That is like you do first. Now, this next pull you'll see, I am going to run up the stairs. I will have a priest bubble, and I'll make sure I put all of my necessary bubbles and shields that talent tree or your mage class trainer. Either shield will work just fine. Don't worry about failing here. I know it's recommended that you use your most powerful shield and be level 40 and blah blah blah. No, you can do this before level 40. You only really have to use Mana Shield in combination with the Priest Bubble. Make sure you double shield, because both of those shields will work at the same time. Also, while you're running, make sure your time frame is correct on your shield bubbles. Sometimes the Priest will bubble you way before you run, and then your bubble for your Priest shield will run out before you can grab all the NPCs, and then you'll get smacked to death. Make sure it's as fresh as possible. Don't let that shield fade before you start running up the stairs or partway through. Now this next pull is probably the hardest pull in SM CATH. It's not that hard to do, you just have to understand what you're doing. So for the first pull, you can see the pillars. The second pull, this one that we just did. Another tip, actually, before I continue on, is you can bob and weave in between those pillars, jump in and out between them to change aggro, so that they will actually try to run around the pillar and not melee you. This will save you a couple hits and make your shields last longer so you can get around. Another key factor is blink to get to the well in the center fountain. Now, starting the third pull here, you can see I grab the first couple mobs, the third one, fourth one, and I jump through. You can only jump through once. This will eliminate any melee from popping your shield soon. Then you want to jump up and over, and then you want to blink towards the fountain up the upper section here, and then there's two ways you can do it. You can either ice block with the other mage pulling left side, or you can just run straight down the stairs, follow all the NPCs to the stairs while you have the mage, or two, dropping Blizzard. Now, what Blizzard will do is it'll bundle up all the NPCs and create no gappage, and then you just can follow up with an AoE Nova and kind of linking together and freeze them in place. What you can do is then with the Blizzard yourself, or you can Nova on the way down if the NPCs get too close. What the left side mage is going to do is they're going to run either blink towards the fountain, jump down the side that you funnel your NPCs to, or they're going to ice block and synchronization with you, just like you did the first bottom level here. So it's not that difficult. Just keep in mind that these NPCs do hit hard, and you don't ever want them to catch up to you. Make sure your priest is on top of heals, just in case you get smacked all the way down to like 10%, 26% health. If you ice block in the section, they can heal you while you're in ice block, so don't really worry about dropping and dying as long as your priest is on top of their game. Again, if you ice block on the upper level for this pull, make sure you have a mage on the upper level with a priest ready to pull that aggro off you. And then most times you're going to have that initial aggro pull down to the bottom anyways. Whenever I do that pull, we don't have the NPCs while we're upstairs, the courtyard area. Most of the time you're going to pull them down to the bottom. It's not that difficult to understand. Just make sure you have some mages who know what they're doing. Give them a step-by-step process, and everything should go smooth. Of course, your first couple of pulls might be because you're getting used to the understanding of how the Spellcleave is going to work. But once you get the basics down, have zero problems. As long as you don't have somebody, just not listening and not paying attention. Sometimes there's a language barrier, which I've had in the past. I've had that same person like ninja stuff and just need on every green. If you ever have that happen, just kick them and replace them, because there are tons of mages that would gladly do a mage cleave group and would love to learn it. So we're stuck here, looting. Manaing up is a key factor here. You want to make sure you're always buffed, so you're back temper buffs. Make sure you have your stand buff just in case you get smacked a bunch. And in this case, we're going to do the fourth and final pull. It's a single go. You're going to pull the entire cathedral with one go. You're not going to have to worry about having multiple mages. It's a single mage for this final pull. In this case, we have our level 38 mage. He knows what he's doing. I think his name is Wrenchit. So basically what he's going to do, and this is probably the easiest pull and quickest kill factor with the most XP. So make sure you know what you're doing before you do this final pull. And make sure, this is the key factor here. Once, all you have to do is run halfway with all your shields up, priest bubble, mana shield. Doesn't matter what shield you're using, it will take the least amount of damage for this, unless you mess up. So basically this guy, he's going to run through, he's going to blink halfway. While you're running through and you blink, you have to have that boss targeted. Okay, as soon as you get within range of the boss, you're going to want to use your silencing spell. That silencing spell is going to aggro the boss, okay? As soon as that happens, you wait maybe 1 or 2 seconds, and then you ice block. You have to wait a good amount of time, because you want to make sure all of the mobs in the entire cathedral up here aggro onto you, okay, before you have a mage follow up with a blizzard. In this case, I followed up with a blizzard. Okay, and as soon as all those mobs pull away from the ice block person that pulled the whole room, definitely wasn't ready. That person will Nova. Run. That Frost Nova, this is the type will not happen right away, because that person wants to create a little bit of gap between him and the NPCs. So this specific time that was bad. They will run forward the entire room will be aggroed by another mage at this point. All the NPCs off your ice block. You will run forward about 3/4 away through the group of individual NPCs, which gives that blizzard time to pull aggro, so that when you Nova, you won't pull aggro off of the entire group of NPCs. In this specific instance, that happened wrong, and everything got kind of messed up because we blizzarded too soon. We ran into the room too soon, and it pulled some aggro off from the first initial NPCs. So what we're going to do is kind of do a retake on this and do it properly. This is kind of to show you what can happen problem-wise in that last pull, what to do to kind of save your butts in the end game. Of course, unfortunately, 2 mages died because they. I'm glad you guys had to see those because that. So what happens is probably what happens. If the timing's all off, people will start to die and you have to reset. Make sure your timing is 100%. So basically, you're gonna get up there. The first mage will run in, pull the entire cathedral, and you have to give that mage enough time to pull all of the casters and the side rooms. The other half doesn't. You'll see the side rooms kind of aggro on and start beating on the ice block. They body pull whatever was the initial casters that are in that room will run up to that ice block. Once you see those initial casters run up to the ice block, it's okay to kind of take a couple steps into the room and wait for the aggro to kind of fully go around the ice block. Once that happens, you will then blizzard, pull the aggro off. And I'm going over it again just to clarify the situation that occurred. So you pull all that aggro off as another mage. It won't be you if you're pulling. If you're not pulling, you want to pull the aggro off from that mage so that they don't die in one hit, because you're going to hit 20 to 30 mobs easily. And then this room is going to give you the most XP of the entire cathedral. You can run this up to level 44, but I highly recommend just running 40 or 42, because once you're level 40 or 42, you can go to ZF and run the ZF Graveyard Spellcleave. And that's this one is super simple to understand. That priest is on top of that level, because if you get smacked before you get the ice block off and you need health, want some priest heals. Needs on a blue. Now, the second phase is that priest has to pull aggro from the boss and fight the boss around the courtyard while you AoE down the NPCs. Just use a Mind Blast as a priest, run around, jump down the waterfall, and run up. Jump down the waterfall, run up. Super easy. So, there you go. Alright, as you can see, our first attempt failed, and we had to clear a couple mobs that didn't reset. This will happen sometimes when you pull and it fails and everybody has to rezone in for a second attempt on the Cathedral section of this phase. What you'll see is that everyone is kind of rebuffed, maned up. This is the hardest pull, and then, of course, your ice block is going to be on cooldown. The first two mages that run the left and right side, they're going to use 2 ice blocks, of course. If they use the second ice block on the upper courtyard, they're going to be on cooldown, and you're going to want a third mage to do the final pull. As you can see, we didn't use ice block, but, well, the second ice block, because you can cold snap to refresh the cooldown on ice block. Which is what a majority of the groups are going to do. So for this final pull, let me kind of go over what went wrong in the first pull. As you could see, that there's 2 mages that ran in right away without waiting for the room to aggro onto the ice blocked mage. That caused those casters to aggro onto those 2 mages and killed them, essentially. Good job. What you're going to want to do is wait for those mages to run up to the ice blocked mage, because if you don't, it will screw up everything. It's very important that your timing is spot on for this section, okay? These mages in my group, they're kind of learning as we go, because that wasn't like the first time they've ever done it. It's maybe the second or third, but they're still learning the pulls. So if you have like an issue with pulls, some mages might just drop and leave right away. Make sure you let them know, hey, don't leave right away. We're gonna have a couple of hiccups as our group works on synergy and timing. So just make sure you type that in chat. Hey, the first 2 rounds aren't going to be 100% correct, okay? We're going to learn the pulls. We're going to figure out who's going left, who's going right. And we're going to figure out who's going to do the final pull, who's going to do the first pull, who's going to be our blizzard, our main person to blizzard, and who isn't, okay? So you're going to want to have a mage that's kind of assigned to pulling the aggro off from you when you ice block. You're also going to want to have a mage assigned to pulling right sides only, and then you're going to want to have another mage assigned to pulling left sides only for lower and upper courtyards. Then you're going to want to have a mage that's assigned to the final pull, so that it makes the rolls a little bit easier and simplified for everybody. And you're going to want to have a priest that knows what's going on, okay? So as long as the priest knows what's going on, you won't have any problems as long as everyone is on the same page. Now, everyone's going to have their roles, right? You're gonna want to vocalize in chat to everybody exactly what their role is, how to do the role, and what kind of mistakes they might come across. So I've come across language barrier, tab target dog, where they have no idea what I'm saying, and then that causes problems because they don't know what to do for the pulls. And then there's also talent tree spec problems. So the talent tree specs, if they're not spec'd correctly, their blizzard will not slow the mobs that get aggroed, and they will not even pull off from the ice blocked individual. And the ice blocked individual will die, and then you'll lose a quarter of your group's damage right away. It is possible to AoE him down with only 3 mages, and sometimes even 2 if they're pretty good. But you have to keep in mind that for everything to run fast and smoothly, 7 to 12 minute runs, 5 runs an hour is what the recommended thing is. If you run in 12 minutes, that's totally cool, because people have to drink, people have to buff up, people have to know their roles, people have to refresh their mind on what they're doing, and they have to make sure they're blizzarding at the correct time. If they're not, then everything's going to go all over the place. So there are times where there's 1 or 2 pats, or maybe 1 or 2 mobs that don't get aggro. So by pat, I mean something ran, like walked off and didn't get aggroed for some reason and got left behind because maybe they got frozen and slowed too hard or something. And that mob is going to be left behind and start attacking your blizzarding, AoEing, damaging mages. So if one of your mages is getting smacked by a mob, you're going to also lose a huge percentage of your damage. Now, if that mage sheeps that target, then your problem is solved. Just make sure whoever's getting attacked is aware that they're getting attacked and sheeps the target that is attacking them. You have 4 sheeps, so you can polymorph whoever is, or whatever mob is like kind of left behind. Another rule of thumb is if you want to hold aggro better so that your mages in the back group don't pull the casters and stuff, you can use an arcane blast right before or after you Nova on the way out. Okay. Sometimes the timing is a little clunky, so the blast won't hit them all, but it'll get enough to where the aggro is a little bit better for you. You can arcane blast while you're running, but I highly recommend that you use your bubble multiple times. If you have your mana shield and it gets hit by a few melee towards the end of your pull, you're going to want to reapply that shield. And you want to make sure you have enough mana to reapply the shield because it's going to eat up some of your mana if you're not level 40. Just make sure that you're not using so many arcane blasts that you don't have enough mana to save your butt in the end if you need it. And always make sure the timing is correct on your bubbles. Make sure your priest bubbles, and then you refresh your mana shield before you run and aggro. So now that we've explained all that, just keep in mind your groups, they're not going to all be perfect, and they're going to want to maybe, loot right away, and make sure your priest is on board with knowing exactly what they're doing when they're kiting the boss. Because I've had priests die right away because they don't even bubble themselves, or they won't even like pop a renew on themselves to kind of get some heals going while they're getting smacked on the way to the waterfall, because they don't have a slow really, and they can't really mitigate damage that well if if they got slowed. If they get hit in the back, yeah, they're gonna get slowed, and they're gonna have a little stun that concusses them, and they, it's not gonna be essentially a stun, but it will slow them. So they can strafe to kind of eliminate that from happening, which is just kind of going sideways and making sure they have a bubble on so they don't take damage at all while they're running to the waterfall. But yeah, for the most part, if they don't bubble, they'll take 3/4 of the health or damage before they get to the waterfall. And if they're a little bit lower level and they don't have good gear, they will die. So make sure that they're properly mind blasting the boss, because what happens is you ice block, you wait for the whole room to aggro, another mage will AoE damage all of the mobs. But here's the thing. More times than not, the boss is just going to run right through everything and run at the mage that's blizzarding. So it's a key factor that the priest pulls the aggro off from the blizzarding mage that is literally there to save your ice blocked mage's butt. Make sure that that priest is there to save the blizzarding mage's butt by mind blasting the boss away from that mage so that they don't take damage. And after they mind blast, that's when they run and start kiting. But make sure, like, when they mind blast, they're not like mind blasting the boss when the boss is literally on their butt. Make sure they have a little bit of space between them and the boss while they're mind blasting. As long as they mind blast with some space, they can get away and take damage. Make sure they're bubbling themselves immediately after or before they mind blast. So it's super easy. So you can kite your boss. There's a little left or right side, or they can just jump down the waterfall. Most effective method for running it is jump down the waterfall. Okay, so super easy to understand. So you explain it to everybody. Make sure their talents are correct. Make sure their roles are correct. Keep the same roles for every person. Make sure your priest knows what they're doing and they have the priest role. Make sure that you have a blizzarding mage to always back up your ice-blocked people. Make sure you have the same person going left side every time. Make sure you have the same person going right side every time. So you can kind of split up the group so that 2 mages left and right, 1 mage blizzard, 1 mage doing the first and last pulls. Very easy. As long as everybody knows their roles correctly, you won't have problems, and you'll have swift 7 problems. And I recommend just doing 12-minute runs so you don't have to wait at midnight. Because if you're doing 5 runs an hour, that's 40k XP per hour. Alright? That's for your whole group. And the 40k XP per hour is going to give you 4 to 6 bars of XP each time you do the run, depending on your level. So you're going to be getting like 1 to 2 levels an hour. You can stop doing this at level 42, which is my recommendation, so that your ZF graveyard pulls are easier. And I will have another video right after this kind of explaining the entire thing that I'm doing for ZF graveyard pulls. And I will show you step by step how to do it really easily right after this video. So the easiest way make sure that you don't get downed and that everyone stays alive, is that your roles are assigned to people and stay assigned to people for the entirety of your runs. And if you have to replace something, replace maybe your left side, make sure that the new mage that comes in is a left side mage. And if they don't know what they're doing, have somebody that knows what they're doing take over that role, and then you fill in that gap yourself, or whatever, because that's what I've had to do in the past. So there might be a language barrier. Nobody, kind of knows what they're doing if they can't understand what to do. So you kind of want to replace those, unfortunately. If you have somebody that is not spec'd correctly, replace them. You have to have your blizzard slows. You have to have those people spec'd correctly for AoE Frost. Let's say you need to use a mana gem or a jade, like an agate or a jade. You want to make sure those are ready. You're going to probably need to use them for the upper courtyard and the final pull, because you're going to run out of mana by the time you have to fight the boss. And once you fight the boss, you're going to want an evocation. You want to save your evocation for the very end when you need to fight the boss after you depleted all your mana on the Cathedral pull. Okay, you're not going to want to stand around and loot before you go and fight the boss. You're going to want to kill the boss immediately, because it is 500 to 536 per boss kill. So you're going to get a little bit over 1,000 XP if you stand around and kill the bosses. But that's going to eat up a little bit more time, so that your next run, is your full hour is going to be a little bit longer. So if you do that 4 or 5 times, you're going to eat up 3 to 5 extra minutes per time. So that's, 15 to 20 minutes of extra time just to kill the bosses. So you have the possibility to just loot up while he's kiting, or her, or whatever priest you have, whatever priest is in there kiting. Make sure that you just loot up really quickly, make sure the priest runs in there and loots up, and you just zone out while the boss is up, and then reset, come back in, and do it again. That'll save some of the runtime. And people don't need gear to find bosses. It's super simple to understand. Comment, like, subscribe if you want more videos explaining more in-depth descriptions. What I see is a lot of people posting videos about how to Spellcleave CATH, Spellcleave ZF Graveyard, but none of them are going into fine details about, oh, don't do this or you'll die. Maybe 5 to 10 times unless you figure out how to not do it. So this is just to eliminate that possibility, and I want you all to just kind of have a good smooth run. happy grinding, happy boosting, whatever you do.